In this slideshow, in this unit in general, we're going to be talking about how purchasing goods becomes more meaningful as a social activity, and how ads, the various strategies that ads start to use to communicate to people what it is that makes them worth purchasing and distinguishes them from others. So we're going to be talking about how value is created and the role that ads play in creating that value and the kinds of images and arguments that they make to consumers in order to encourage their purchase. So we're again at the end of the beginning, I should say, of the Industrial Revolution prior to the beginning of the 20th century and into the teens prior to the 20s this week. And so this is an era where there's a new culture of consumption based around a kind of split between the public and private spheres, men-oriented and associated with the public sphere, and women the private sphere. So it's a time period when possessing material goods is going to be a sign of social mobility. It's going to allow people to differentiate themselves from others and participate in a new world, a new era of consumption than previously existed. In terms of the kinds of images and ideas that you see embodied in ads, they're still kind of hearkening back to an earlier era, that of Victorian culture. And so much of what we see in American advertising is just kind of accepting British standards of Victorian taste and Victorian ideals, in particular of what constitutes the family. So we see in the popular media of the day novels and plays and things of that nature, as well as in advertising, images that are going to sustain this ideal notion of what constitutes the Victorian family, the tight-knit family, women in the home versus men outside the home. However, we're going to see a dramatic change take place as we go into the 20s, and the notion of becoming modern becomes very, very important. So in other slideshows, I'm going to talk specifically about the very different kinds of ad strategies that we see, but I want to stop for a second and talk a little bit about this ad, which is an ad for Pond's Extract, kind of like a lotion, essentially. And you can see here, the basic keys, strategies of this ad is that the vast majority of the ad is a domestic scene. It's a scene of home life, an idealized scene of home life, where we have a wife and mother sitting reclined, and her I don't know what you call this, her gown, her dress at home, and then a daughter as well who has these things up in her hair. They're all both made up very well, and these are Victorian ideals of what home is like. You can see they're not working in the home, they're spending leisure, they're comfortable, and there are a lot of things in this image that tell us that this is a well-off family. You can see on the right-hand side that there's a kind of a stringed instrument there. There's a couple of books laying on the table. The mother's reading a newspaper, right? And the style of the furniture and so forth is somewhat ornate. Now, that's creating this image of home, and then of course what the ads do is going to do is place the product in it, and it does that by having a bit of dialogue between these two characters. Mother says, "Why does father put Pond's extract?" Excuse me. The child says, "Mother, why does father put Pond's extract on his face when he isn't hurt?" And mother says, "Because he likes the pleasant, soothing feeling of it, dearie." So it's telling us something about the product. But what's most important is this product is placed within this exchange and within this home in this image of idealized family life. So, as I said, in this era, this is an era where women's role is associated with the home because there is this clear boundary between the public realm and the private realm, men in the public, women in the private. In this separation, though, women become the consumers. They become the ones who are in charge of making all the purchases for the home. And again, I've got an image here that kind of shows you an example of Victorian style and Victorian ideals of femininity. Notice the dress. When we look at stuff from the 20s, you're going to see dramatically different images of femininity. And in this case, the Victorian ideal, it's skin covered all the way up to your chin. Look how tight the collar is on this woman, and this enormous florid hat on top of her head. Montgomery Ward hat that becomes nearly every woman is what it says. And the kind of the words below it argue that it's a style that pleases because it is attractive, dressy, stylish, and becoming. It's talking all about the material and so forth that is in it that's going to make it fashionable. Now, you've also got a reading this week that's about Selfridges, this department store in England. And actually, in recent years, there's been a television series about Selfridges as well that you can watch on BBC America, or I think PBS might even carry it. So you might look that up. But in that essay, I want you to pay attention to how it kind of deals with this notion of the difference between the public and private spheres and how women are the ones that are in charge of shopping and consumption. And that essay is arguing that Selfridges and the way that he promoted his store transformed shopping and that responsibility of being the person who's in charge of purchasing to make it a new era of shopping. And that's one of the things that you'll be discussing in your discussion forum this week. What was new about it, and what was the nature of that transformation, and why did he do that?